Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now, my name's Rod Mackenzie, and today I want to talk about the Chinese president's visit to Moscow for the Victory Day parade and the meetings he had with Vladimir Putin. Now, in my opinion, the meetings between the two and their talks have increased the likelihood of the signing of a new historic gas contract with China this year under the auspices of the Power of Siberia 2 project. Now, the primary concern, I think, between the parties is the price of the future supplies. I mean, there are rumours that Russia will sell gas to China at the current low domestic prices. But why is this an unlikely scenario? I mean, with Russia and China on the verge of signing their second historic contract for pipeline gas supplies, let's look back at the first gas agreement was signed back in 2014. Now, following the completion of this Power of Siberia 1 gas pipeline, it's scheduled to reach only its designated capacity now in 2025. Now, Russia, through that project, has committed to supplying 38 billion cubic metres of gas per year. Now, the contract for the gas supplies via Power Siberia 2 has not yet been signed, and without it, the construction of the gas pipeline cannot begin. Now, it's my understanding that the leaders of Russia and China have recently held talks on the project and have agreed to accelerate its implementation. Now, this information was communicated by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Head of Energy, Alexander Novak. Now, Sergei Tsarevich, who's the head of the Russian Ministry of Energy and works with Novak, has confirmed that Gazprom and the Chinese company CNPC are working on the contract. Now, he stated that the two parties are now in active stage of negotiations. At the same time, he did immediately have to stipulate that they didn't have time to sign any agreement by May the 9th. So when can we actually expect the signing of a commercial contract with China for the Power of Siberia 2? Well, I'm not certain that it's going to be signed this year. I mean, there's been many discussions about the potential for the agreement to be signed, and those include during Putin's visit to China in September, but these discussions have not resulted in any formal agreement. Now, that said, however, the likelihood of finalising the agreement has increased significantly recently. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSInsight.com, to further develop them. You can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates gets a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and do keep the comments coming. I do enjoy reading the comments and responding to them, so do keep those coming. Now, there's also the possibility that the agreement could be signed either during the St. Petersburg Economic Forum or during President Vladimir Putin's visit to China for the victory celebrations in September. However, in my opinion, it's more probable that it will be in September, as the previous contract was also signed during one of Putin's numerous visits to China. Now, it's likely to be of significance to the Chinese because of them who want the gas, but they also want people to come to them to sign agreements, says Igor Yushkov, who's an analyst at the Russian Financial University and the National Energy Security Fund of Russia. Now, the primary issue that has delayed the decision on the project's go-ahead, which does require a compromise solution from both parties, is the price of the gas. Now, the pricing formula is not publicly known, but media reports have indicated that the price of Russian gas to China will not be linked to the spot market, but rather to the domestic prices in Russia, which are obviously much lower than export prices. Now, I am like Yushkov, and I'm sceptical about the likelihood of China agreeing to align the price formula with domestic Russian gas prices. Because in such a scenario, Russia would have complete control over the pricing of Russian gas supplies to China. Right? Moscow has the ability to increase domestic gas prices by multiple amounts, compelling the Chinese to pay a significantly higher price. Of course, at the same time, the Russian state could provide subsidies to its domestic consumers, ensuring that they are not overcharged. So therefore, myself and other analysts believe the pricing is more likely to be based on global prices for energy resources. Now, concurrently, Russia's not willing to make unprofitable deliveries either. I mean, if it were interested in signing a loss-making contract, it would have done so a long time ago, rather than engaging in protracted long-term negotiations. Now, it has been suggested that Gazprom's concluding an agreement with China for the construction of the gas pipelines, despite the fact that the Russian company Gazprom has never been a direct beneficiary of such projects. I mean, the negotiations on the Power of Siberia 1 were protracted, but ultimately culminated in a compromise agreement that still is advantageous to Russia. So the objective of the Power of Siberia is to reach a profitable agreement, according to Yushkov. Now, as outlined in the Power of Siberia 1 contract, the pricing formula is linked to the cost of oil and oil products on the Asian market with a time lag of 9 months. Now, Yushkov has indicated that the Power of Siberia 2 could adopt a similar pricing strategy to that was similarly employed, or alternatively, a link to the gas spot price in the markets in Asia. So what are the reasons for the implementation of this project, and why the hurry to get them underway now? Well, first, this represents yet another exacerbation of the already tense relationship between China and the United States. I mean, the constant implementation of trade sanctions has been replaced by a tough trade war now against China by the US. So it's my belief that the Chinese leadership has now come to the conclusion that the situation is only going to deteriorate further. Even if they reach agreement on tariffs, that's not going to be the end of it. It's obvious that the United States is committed to impeding China's economic advancement in any way that it can. Consequently, regardless of what China's actions are, the restrictions will continue to be imposed on it by the United States. So should the conflict escalate into an acute phase, the US could actually block seaborne energy supplies to China from the south through the Straits of Malacca, for example. Now, in addition to the volume, the reliability of energy supplies is becoming a key concern for China. Now, all the components originating from the northern region have consistently demonstrated a high degree of reliability, whether it's the Eastern Siberia Pacific Ocean oil pipeline, Power of Siberia 1, they're all been working well. So the key arguments in favour of the Power of Siberia 2 is reliability. Now, Yushkov's position is as follows. He says the second argument is the expectation of this special military operation. Now, it's widely acknowledged that the military conflict is going to end in the near future. It may not end in 2025, but it's certainly going to end in 2026. Now, it's evident that a significant number of companies from around the world, particularly the US and Europe, are looking at the restoration of economic contracts with Russia. And despite the increasingly assertive stance adopted by European politicians to Russia, European companies are eagerly anticipating the opportunity to resume operations with Russia. Now, China is in a similar position. One of the factors that restrained China from signing the Power of Siberia 2 was the desire to maintain its neutrality and avoid providing grounds for further sanctions due to active cooperation with Russia. However, in anticipation of the end of the special military operation, the risks are reduced, according to the Yushkov. In addition, China requires additional volumes of gas, given the growth in its gas consumption and imports and its reduction on the reliance on coal. Plus gas imports are increasing at around 25 billion cubic metres a year according to figures. So should a commercial contract be signed this year, the first gas through the pipeline will not be available to China until 2030. Now, Yushkov believes that the construction phase will take 4 to 5 years in line with the experience of the Power of Siberia project, but it might be actually less because it took a long time to reach its full capacity from 2019 to 2025. The supply volumes only grew by 5 billion cubic meters per year. I mean, in the case of Power of Siberia too, it's anticipated the designated capacity of 50 billion cubic meters will be reached far easier in a shorter time frame with an annual increase of 10 billion cubic meters in supply, according to experts. I mean, the fact is the resource base for the Power of Siberia 1 was developed from scratch, so that's why it took so long. Where the Power of Siberia 2 will carry Western Siberian gas from already developed fields. These fields previously served as a key point for supplying gas to Europe. Now, at the end of 2021, Alexei Miller, head of Gazprom, informed Vladimir Putin that Western Siberia still had 100 billion cubic meters of reserve capacity that could be used. Now, since then, it's reduced its exports to Europe by a further 140 billion cubic meters, ensuring sufficient gas availability for multiple Power of Siberia projects, says Yushkov. Now, with regards to Gazprom, it's certain the company wishes to resume at least some of its exports in the future, particularly from the West Siberian fields, and whether they go to Europe or not is still obviously debatable. So there are 3 potential routes for the gas supplies to China from Russia. Obviously, they'll continue to go through Power of Siberia 1 with its 38 billion cubic meters, and that's now been fully implemented. Now, the second by the Far Eastern route with a capacity of 10 billion cubic meters is scheduled for its implementation by 2027 under the current contractual agreement, and that's all happening. Now, the third route, the Power of Siberia 2 through Mongolia, with a capacity of 50 billion cubic meters, is obviously still under development, and the contract will be signed in the near future. So that's where that is at. I mean, Russia has the capacity to supply China with around 90 to 100 billion cubic meters of gas per year via reliable routes that can't be cut off and nobody can interfere with them. Now, this is beneficial not only for Gazprom, but for Russia as a state. I mean, since Gazprom will pay more in mineral extraction tax and then export duties on the gas to China, government's going to benefit dramatically. I mean, the estimated price of deliveries obviously is on the final formula in the document, but if you take it as a conditional price of $250 per 1,000 cubic meters, that's lower than in Europe, but higher than domestic prices and close to the level of Power of Siberia 1. So you can estimate that the annual revenue from the export of 50 billion cubic meters will be about $12.5 billion. Now, an exchange rate of 90 rubles per dollar, that equates to about 1.13 trillion rubles per year. You know, so that's not a little bit less sum. All of this, the mineral extraction tax and the export duty, will increase the level to the budget to around 30% of the revenue. And that is going to work out at around $4 to $5 billion. Plus, if you take in the corporate taxes and the taxes on salaries involved in the infrastructure of this project, it's certainly going to increase the budget quite substantially. It's certainly in revenue terms. Anyway, let's see what happens, but I'm convinced that it's all going to happen in the near future. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Also set the alert button so you get informed when I post a new video, and click on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen if you want to make a donation. Thank you, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks.